And Shuruk signed 50% partnership, and then after 2 projects bought $7 billion.
Super, that's so cool.
Shuruk and Iran.
Yeah. Sehr gut.
At first, the red one is 120 billion, and then the last one is 2.4 billion. Like, so what? But it's going to off on page tomorrow, so that's why I got locked up in.
Flo, dann lass uns jetzt mal kommen, weil jetzt sind die so lange. Mal zumachen.
Thank you so much.
Ja?
Ja.
Gut.
Okay.
You want to go?
I'll keep trying to get there in a second.
Okay.
Wait. How's that?
That's perfect. Great. Okay, then let's get started. We're almost on time, I would say. Actually, if you want, we can move over there because our personal trainer session is starting now. So instead, we're just doing the sport, I guess, that we have for the team. No, so obviously, thanks a lot for coming. I appreciate the time, or we appreciate the time, in particular coming to our new office that we're really proud of, happy about, not the office itself, but just looking at the development over the past years. I think that's the
presentation.
To be honest, I'm doing it in the dark.
And you know, I remember myself the first campaigns that we started in this region were in 2012, but out of Europe, some first clients that were interested, e-commerce clients that were interested in targeting customers in Middle East, but that weren't based here. And then shortly after, in 2013, we started with the first campaigns in the region, actually in Saudi with Namshi. So that was our first client at that time. But the team's traveling back and forth, and we realized very quickly that as long as we are not on the ground all the time, we won't be able to grow the way that we wanted to grow, and we won't be able to service the clients as well, because it was still a very new topic, e-commerce, very technology-driven, number-driven, so it meant a lot of explanation, help on integrating with those clients as well. So literally about 5 years ago, we started with local clients, and 3 years ago, we opened the entity and the office, and we just moved in December into this office, which shows that not only we grew, but in the end we grew because e-commerce in the region grew, right? And that's the interesting thing. The first, people coming to me, approaching me when we came here years ago was like, are you sure? I mean, yes, there is a bit of e-commerce, but look at the big malls. It's a lot more malls, and there's even more malls being built. So e-commerce really doesn't have a future. And there's really interesting trends today that show why it even has a much greater future than what we see today, because we still see the big malls, right? And this is what we wanted to talk about. So Kriteo, we are fortunate enough that we have, global operations. So we work with more than 17,000 of the biggest e-commerce players in the world. So what does that mean is also that we, with very deep integration on their sites, we know exactly what is happening in e-commerce around the globe. And we see also, trends, but also challenges that our clients are facing. So what we wanted to talk about today and share with you is a bit of the trends that we expect to become, very big and even bigger this year. Some of them are no rocket science, is something that we have been seeing going on for a little while, but we particularly believe that will impact this ecosystem and the industry moving on in this year. So 3 main topics as we see them. The number one is everything around the consumer, driven by a few specific factors. So everything around m-commerce, so mobile commerce. When you would have asked me a few years back around mobile, I would have given you a 0, like nothing was happening in e-commerce on mobile. Now, in this region, for instance, and we're going to come back to that a bit later, 80% of all the transactions we see in e-commerce are coming through mobile devices. So throughout all of our clients, it is by far the majority of what we see in e-commerce is already happening on mobile. That obviously has a big impact also on your marketing strategies, on your customer communication, how you need to deal with your customers. The second one is everything around commerce as a whole world and e-commerce, where we are saying it's more or less necessary right now to actually drop the E in e-commerce, because it's not e-commerce and it's not offline and online any longer. For consumer, it's one world. And why that is and what's happening there, we're going to cover in a little bit as well. And then, of course, there's tons of new technologies that you're experts in your fields as well, writing about it. However, that are already and that will this year even more impact commerce overall and the retail industry. Something to name at this stage around voice shopping, we know Siri or other voice-steered devices and features that are suddenly also stepping into commerce and into retail. Overall, with all those three that they share, is actually the challenge around data and information, right? So everything around this means there is a lot more and vast amount of data that the retailers, the commerce players are holding today, but they also need to learn to activate that data, to use it in the right way, to communicate with their clients and their customers, which at the same time bears more or less a big challenge as well. Moving into the topic specifically, so again, no rocket science. Shoppers and the customers today are changing fast, extremely fast. When you look back, years back, a retail customer had one touch point with you, maybe two. They maybe went into an offline store, they bought the product, it's okay, very easy, and very clear to communicate with that customer. Today, everything is changing. Every year, new technologies coming in, and overall empowering the customer, empowering the shopper, right? Through the mobile devices, and overall a much shorter attention span. So this is a big challenge for commerce, because when you look at it, minority of the time that an online user is spending online is actually related to shopping. Most of it is related to social media, etc. So you have very limited time to actually address your communication and your messaging to the consumers. There's two very interesting trends happening that we call showrooming and webrooming. And that is related, again, to another topic that we're discussing later, which is around omni-channel. So showrooming means you see customers that go into the Dubai mall, right? But then they look at the products there, they do some research, but they leave it and they buy online. And webrooming is the other way around. That you see, today also, and you might see it on your own, habits and behavior. You don't, think about, I need this product, go to the mall and buy it. You start your research most likely online before with your mobile phone. You check, what's generally available, what are the prices, where you can get it, etc. And then you go to the mall. But obviously, this type of behavior has a certain impact on, every commerce player in the industry, because again, it's one customer that shows some action on the mobile device or a computer, and then again appears offline as well. And if you, as a commerce player, as a retailer, it's super important to understand where your customers are and that you can properly communicate with them. And these are, in the end, new habits that are, literally just the past years coming up. Of course, new expectations. So the customers become a lot more demanding, right? And we see this in this region in particular, where you have a lot of people coming in from Europe, from the US, and then, you know, settle here, start working here, so they know some of, you know, the services already that they could get back in the UK or in Germany or the US, and they demand this here as well, which is a lot faster, you know, delivery. You want same-day delivery. That's becoming a standard, right? You want a massive selection of products, and obviously, you know, best prices as well. And you want different types of services in terms of click and collect, different types of delivery methods, etc. And this is, you know, sometimes something that's underestimated, but for commerce players, it means, you know, a massive adaptation, innovation, keep, you know, adding more and more services as well. And then obviously new thrills, which is, you know, the real innovative things, fulfillment methods, personalized services. You see the drones, like crazy stuff, but obviously that's what, you know, customers find exciting as well. Smart stores, you see a lot around that coming up a bit more in Asia as well, but there's stores with virtual reality attached to it. You know, you don't have physical products, but it's a physical store that are connected to the online store. So there's a lot of stuff happening here, but again, everything around this means when you look at it, a traditional retailer, no matter where they are, they need to quickly adapt and, you know, keep changing and innovating. I mentioned mobile, right? And I mentioned the number. So these are Criteo numbers. So this is literally from all of our clients, which is very interesting and unique because it's not a survey we do or whatever that has some lack of accuracy. This is what's truly happening. And what is remarkable is, number one, for the Middle East, out of all mobile transactions, out of all e-commerce transactions, digital shopping transactions that we see, 80% are coming through mobile devices, right? So desktop is almost non-existent any longer. Some of the clients are even beyond the 80%. It really depends on the industry, etc. The second point that is remarkable is looking the year-on-year growth. So it's Q3 numbers, Q3 2016, in the Middle East we were at 50%. Last year we were at 80. So the speed that this is changing is massive, right? So when you look back, you know, years or decades back, how long it took for the internet to take over and to literally find a certain penetration, mobile now is, in terms of versus desktop, is having even a much faster speed. And obviously the third is, when we compare Middle East to all the other countries globally, it's by far advanced in this space. While overall what we see, and even myself as a customer, you know, looking at the total share of the retail business in this region, which is just a few percentage points, it's obviously still, you know, far behind what we see already in the US, in Europe. But with mobile, this could change very, very quickly. So another thing in terms of, you know, the change also of shoppers is something towards special single shopping days or events or weeks or a few days, which is a global trend, and what we see also adapting here in the region towards, you know, Black Friday, or like Sue calls it White Friday, for a good reason, where we see that, and just to explain the numbers, there is roughly 180% increase of the shopping volume on a Black Friday versus an average normal week during the year, which means almost 100% year-on-year growth just on that day. So the Black Friday, White Friday shopping day was really big already in 2016, but it was almost twice as big last year. We got feedback from some of the clients that, you know, those days were the biggest day in their history when they were founded, when they started last year. So it shows overall, again, e-commerce is growing, but those specific days are massively increasing. And at the same time, also for Black Friday, it's not a big surprise, the share of mobile transactions doubled on that specific day. So it's even increasing faster on Black Friday versus the overall mobile share. So another thing that's very interesting and also more or less recent is the blurring boundaries in between commerce and social, right? So both merging as well, and you see a lot more commerce happening within social media, and in particular on Facebook, where almost 50% of the users during the last month actually made purchases, and you see all of the players, if it's an Amazon, traditionally from commerce moving into social, or the social players moving into commerce, because that's again where people spend most of their time in social media. So it's just an obvious reaction to also start offering them commerce related content, also when it's related to references, etc. So a point that I've mentioned earlier, online, offline to online, and online to offline in the end, which I find one of the most exciting topics in this region. Again, for the main fact, because here is a super strong retail culture, mall culture, and even though there is a lot of changes already the past 2 years in particular, you go and the malls are still full, right? But that's because of this showrooming effect. People going into the malls for the research, for looking at the products, touching them, but then they buy online for various reasons, right? For the ease of the delivery. I mean, I see it myself. I go into the mall and then buying a carpet and dragging it through the whole mall back home is not very convenient, right? So obviously there's trends of you go, you buy, and they deliver. But very often you see the users already in the store, and while they're in the store, already picking up or taking their phone and doing the research, right? So this is something that is happening again globally, and in particular also in this region. Here, is something that a study from JDA and PwC, where it shows that some of these quite specific and special fulfillment options and methods where executives have been asked, and in the end it shows that everyone is thinking about and planning to start offering the click and collect, which you see more and more often, where the trend of you buy online, you ship it to a store so you can pick it up there, which is also an interesting trend. And also just methods of service where you can buy online, but if you want to return it, you can go to the store and return it there. So it's various trends that are going on. But again, what it means is the customers are becoming the ones in the driver's seat. This is what they demand. This is what they want. And as a commerce player, you need to adapt to that and offer this. So data collaboration is something very specific also here. It in the end means a big mindset shift of marketers, of brands, of commerce players. So far, while the first years were happening, a lot more data was generated, everyone was very cautious and wanted to protect their data, right? So think about even our clients. We work with 17,000 of the biggest e-commerce players and commerce players. They all were thinking in silos. They didn't want us to share any data, right? And we're only here because we were very accurate with that. They didn't want, that we use the data for running targeting campaigns for one of their competitors or whatever. However, this is changing now, because the more data you put into a pool, the more data you share, the more everyone is also benefiting from this. And so you see you know, a lot more of those data collaboration initiatives coming up. And that's one of the very big trends, in particular related to marketing. And you see, and this is, you know, a study we did together with Forbes Insights, where, you know, we have asked also the respective players, like, what do you think and what do you expect here, where most of them truly believe that they can increase their revenues out of those marketing initiatives by sharing data. And something, I guess, that, you know, has been, you know, a very big thing, in particular in this region again also, and highly relevant here last year, is everything around partnering and acquisitions, right? So with the different trends happening now, and you see your customer behaviors changing, suddenly you see pure online players realizing that offline presence is still very, very important, right? So it is still the majority of the retail business, and it's still, in terms of customer service, that you more or less have to offer, right? So Amazon, you know, making a massive acquisition with Whole Foods in the US last year, while, you know, you see also in Alibaba making a big acquisition. So again, you know, a pure, you know, online player trying to step in one of the biggest markets into the, you know, offline area as well. But you see the other way around, right? So you see also obviously offline players that, you know, more and more try to get into the online space. You know, what you see here with Noon is a good example, right? It's backed up by, you know, a lot of the traditional offline players and money behind it. So this is how, you know, the players are acting more and more aggressively to adapt to those changes. So new technologies changing, you know, the whole landscape as well. And voice shopping is one of the, I would say also for me, more surprising ones, that it's already, you know, very much sophisticated. So one of the numbers, for instance, is that 35% of that voice usage is already related to voice shopping, right? So obviously, when you look at this here, you know, you have assistants, voice-activated assistants that are leading it, and certain household devices. But in the end, the pure shopping part here is, you know, increasing massively as well. Right now, and that's interesting, of course, with the voice assisted ones, in terms of commerce, it's groceries and home care. So in the end, a lot related to home, right? The important part here to realize is that, again, this voice shopping trend is again changing the whole dynamics of how you address and market your customers as well. Product feed optimization is a very specific one when you look at it. And where it's interesting today, even the pure online players, a product feed, you know, as a basic explanation again, is your sort of your data around all your products that you use for your marketing campaigns. And at Criteo, for instance, just to give you that example again, you know, we don't build a creative for our clients up front and display it in its pre-built. It's being built in real time. So you go on a website, on one of your news sites or so, and only in that moment, within a few milliseconds, we recognize you as a user, and then we build the ad, right? Based on the information we have from you, which means it needs to be a dynamic creative, and it needs to have the best information in the back end as possible, so that we can actually show you an ad that makes sense for you. And one of the big bottlenecks is also the feed around the product. And the more information that you gather, and this is again all about data on the commerce side, the more data you have and the fresher it is, so you need to constantly keep updating it. So just imagine if you're seeing ads and you find it very interesting and you decide, okay, it's about shoes, those are perfect, you want to buy them, and you click on the ad, you go to the e-commerce site, and then it's out of stock, or it's only a super large size or very small and not your size. So imagine in terms of customer satisfaction as well, and the ability to sell, if you have that information constantly refreshed, and if you can actually sometimes even edit to your banner, right? And you say it's available, it's still in the right sizes or in those sizes or whatever it is. And the more you use there, the more attractive the banners will be, and the more powerful your marketing message will be. And this again is related also to one crucial thing, and that's everything around machine learning. It's on the one side something slightly frightening, on the other side something very interesting. Frightening because the machines are super fast, and this is what a lot of our technology is built on machine learning as well. And it's super accurate. So based on using machine learning in marketing enables us to deliver those real-time personal messages. And when we started with it, obviously, people were surprised to see, wow, that's a product I just looked at, exactly the product, only a minute ago. And suddenly they see that in a banner. So interestingly, over the past years, consumers are not worried about that because they get used to it and they feel the benefit out of it. So now just imagine how this can progress and be used. We are, doing a lot of performance marketing primarily, but just imagine if you step into worlds of branding, right? And the power of machine learning there. Most of the people today don't even think about that possibility yet because they have the big creative teams, the people that do brand messaging, etc. But machines will become more and more sophisticated, and they will step into that field as well. And these are specific numbers around asking again from IDC that we did with them a survey of what they are using machine learning for, also for creative optimization and personalization. And a lot of that, most of them, and these are the two messages in the end, are saying yes, we are using it already. So we are using machine learning to automate and optimize our creatives. A lot of it is around the images, it's around personalization, it's around colors even. It's making every single marketing messaging, every single banner more attractive and appealing to a unique customer and user, and not applying one across thousands or millions of different customers. So just one thing, and I'm going to wrap up here very quickly. Again, I mentioned that we have been working already for many, many years with thousands of clients, and interestingly, having a lot of data in thousands of silos, right? And when we look at the whole as an ecosystem, it's more or less shocking already to see what we have as a one unique ecosystem and what's all available in there if everyone is willing to share the data. And to give you a few numbers, just Kriteo as a whole ecosystem, as a commerce ecosystem, we see 700 million active shoppers worldwide in this ecosystem. And just imagine how that is enabling marketing messaging. If you're sharing the data, even globally across the multiple and thousands of different commerce players, we see 550 billion of online sales happening every year. So that is, to put that into perspective, that is almost twice as much as is happening on Amazon globally in that ecosystem. So this is a massive ecosystem that is more or less, ready to use, where, to be, very transparent, we are now for a while going out to the clients and trying to help them understand the value of sharing data that they have, and the value of us in the middle as a neutral player processing the data for them to run even more effective marketing campaigns. And I guess when you look at it, and this is a daily number, I mean, I'm not even the most technical person, but 600 terabyte of data is showing everything that we have discussed before. There is lots and lots of data collected every day now, and even in other industries, right? You think about smart city, etc. It's lots of data, but the biggest problem, even in a more technologically advanced field, it's about using that data, activating it, being able to crunch it. And that's why we are talking for a while already about this whole topic of madman versus mathman. Like, the number-driven people, technology-driven people are becoming more and more important, and all the trends that you see that we have discussed today are all based on data, on analytics, etc. So this was in a slightly quicker, I tried to be as quick as possible, since we're running late. What we are observing globally, very interestingly for me, quite exciting, that the trends we see globally in this region are not only happening, but some of them we are already leading. Just as a reminder, when you look at mobile, and again, this whole omni-channel, offline to online, is something that I'm sure bears tons of opportunities in this region. So, thanks so far. I don't know if you have any questions at this stage. I mean, it had loads of numbers as well that we are obviously happy to share with you also afterwards, so that you have all of that. I don't know how we proceed.
Can we already have the first question?
Yeah, sorry, I come in, but I need to take us our vision to UAE market and GCC market for all.
So
your vision about UAE market and GCC market.
My vision, I try to incorporate that a bit into this messaging as well.
Yeah, we have 2 seats here.
Okay, yeah, no, it's fine. I've been sitting.
So, from number one, it's literally about the commerce growth here overall and everything that's related to the digital part, right? Where one key point is that this region was lacking behind a lot for the past years, but with mobile, it will see a dramatic growth, and it's not only shifting from that it's one certain amount of e-commerce shoppers that are now shifting from desktop to mobile, but mobile itself will massively push the digital commerce. So the other thing is, again, and that's in my opinion, again, the biggest thing, and here it's really up to the individual players in this region to adapt to it, is the whole omni-channel, right? So not, and that's the crucial part, is not to stick to it and say, okay, we have the big malls, we still are generating sales there. It's about now, latest now, to understand that your consumers are operating in a much broader world already. The third thing, and I think that's very positive, is what you saw last year, right? For e-commerce, so far, I mean, Souq was by far the dominating player, made most of the e-commerce. I think up to 40% was just through Souq. while they weren't able
40% here
in the region, yeah, so 38. I can even have it somewhere. I can look it up. Yes, in 2016 it was 38% just by soup.
There is no number of 2017.
I don't have that. It's I have it 2016, but we can look it up. I mean, it's yeah.
We'll check this again.
Yeah, and while now there was the big acquisition of Amazon. On the one hand, for the people here in the region, I would say, yeah, so the big player is coming in now. I was personally very happy and proud to see strong local players here, and it's not one of the markets where it's purely dominated by the big international guys. But at the same time, you see Noon then, stepping out as well. So
50% from Saudi Arabia.
yeah, so it's I personally believe it's a very important and good thing happening, because all of that will push, massively the region. And in particular, things that I mentioned earlier around innovation, around services for the customers, right? Because there, even from a pure consumer point of view, there was, still lots of gaps and areas that was lacking. So this is again, for this year in particular, and the next, something that I'm convinced will help to push overall the industry.
Thank you.
The growth of e-commerce in the Middle East, or the one which we saw it before, like Middle East is grow to from 50 to 80 and like this.
That was the mobile share of voice.
Yeah.
So that's of all e-commerce that's happening.
Yeah.
How many transactions are happening on mobile devices versus a desktop computer?
Yeah, but it's comes, the average comes, depends on the transaction numbers or the amount, the value.
It's a very good question. In this case, it's the total value that is happening.
The total value.
Yeah.
So it means the Middle East spend more than the other people, the other countries, in the value.
That's a good point, but that's the second one. It's so that number just showed of the total transactions, how much is coming through a desktop versus a mobile. It doesn't say it's more than in another country. It's just the share of voice. 80% of all the transactions now are coming through mobile.
So it means it depends on the transaction number, not the amount.
So it's a ratio.
It's a ratio. It means when you have 100 transactions in the US, and then you have 100 transactions in the Middle East. Then you have, out of these 100 transactions in the Middle East, 80 done on mobile, and in the US only, let's say, 60 done on mobile.
And what
It's
you're,
really just a ratio.
What you're referring to is another number, which is, for instance, the average cart value. So for every purchase, how much is the average value that a customer is buying here in the region?
Yeah, this what I mean is maybe I increase 80% or whatever it is, or 80% for transaction from the mobile, because I buy fast food or something like that. But it's not a real amount in the market. Like I can make 10% increase in the United States or UK with a big value, useful value, and at the same time I make it triple or 4 times, but for food and
So this is, yeah.
yeah, it's okay. I have a lot of transactions, but it's not useful for the e-commerce itself, because now I can buy food through the e-commerce. I can buy fast food through mobile.
So this is only retail. So this doesn't include food, and it doesn't include, for instance, Kareem, which is pure app as well.
Yeah, but
So this is only a retail number that is not including food.
yeah.
But you're right. I mean, but number one, it's 80% of all the transactions are through mobile. So this includes both high value and lower value transactions. And of course, mobile phones are pushing a lot also lower value transactions that are coming up. It's new trends, food delivery, taxi
So
services.
in the end, I would like to know if the Middle East people using the mobile itself in right way, or it's only just as a payment way, a way to payment for their payment. That's all.
So so number one, it's across all categories.
It's okay.
Number two, the ones that are mostly used, I even have that, is sporting goods and home are the two verticals that are mainly used for buying through mobile phone. Sporting and home.
Okay.
When you look at retail, again, it doesn't include the food and the other, right? It's each 48%. But I'm sure we have even more dedicated numbers that we're happy to share. It's just about how deep we're going to drill into analyzing the numbers that we have on mobile. But again, when you think about that, out of all the transactions that are happening in this region, online, 80% are coming through the mobile. By nature, it must be the majority, right? Like it's out of all the categories anyways.
But is it means that the people use the mobile in the right way? Use the e-commerce through the mobile in the right way? Because in the end, I have to use when I'm using e-commerce, it's only to buy something from somewhere far from me. I cannot reach it. I cannot roam there. Like it's not shopping room there. I cannot, but I can use it to get what I need. But if I'm order some foods, same building downstairs, I call through the mobile and I get it. Is it real transaction? It comes to the real active transaction for using of the mobile.
Yeah, but the right way is servicing the customer, right?
Yeah,
so
I know, serving the customer.
If you, for instance, say, I don't want to deliver these type of products to my customers through a mobile transaction or whatever, then they will go and order somewhere else, right? But it's a mixture. I mean, I think it's a few different topics. Number one, yes, the whole commerce, but that's commerce is
it's e-commerce.
And e-commerce is pushed and growing also by new type of verticals, by the industry changing, right? Just again, think back a few years when I started operating here in the region, finding a taxi, they only take cash and all of that. Now you have Kareem, you order, it's very easy. So suddenly from pure, that's a full new e-commerce sort of revenue and money coming in. And then you have food, of course, but that's a global trend. But what you definitely see, and I'm happy to look more into the numbers also, is that you see any type of higher value products or whatever being ordered online, right? Of course, it's travel as well. A lot more hotels, flights, all of that.
But the idea for me, if I said that the Middle East or the Middle East region is increasing by 60%, it means it's very big value. If I said it's increased by 60%, it means it's very big value. But in the same time, if I compare the value of the transaction itself, it will be very low. Maybe I increase the numbers of transaction, but in the same time, the value itself is coming less.
No, it's the same transactions. It's share of voice. The transactions that were coming through.
So this number doesn't say anything about the value.
Yeah.
It's just a ratio out of 100.
This
purchases you make. 80.
In this case, I mean, I can make a lot of transactions, millions of transactions, but in the same time, it's nothing for e-commerce itself.
I think what he's referring to is the value of e-commerce. Is it increasing year over year or not?
Okay.
So we can look into that and give you numbers of
we
how
have also
e-commerce
to compare the value of the value, increasing value in the e-commerce compared with the transaction itself.
Yeah, so
like
e-commerce.
I cannot make like 1,000 transactions in 10 dirhams, and in the same time someone can make 2 transactions everyone in 10,000.
It's from, but that's what I'm saying. It's when you look at the total e-commerce growth, it's coming from different areas. It's offline shifted to online. Products that have been purely bought offline are now, people are starting to buy them online. It's which could be high value products. It's lower value stuff, again, a taxi ride or food or whatever. And it's a mix of all. I mean, the total e-commerce growth, we try to share a lot of the numbers that we have in our systems, right? So There is obviously some numbers
Yeah,
we
of
have that we
course.
can't share about a specific
Yeah, this is what I mean. The e-commerce
client.
itself, the e-commerce. When I'm talking about the commerce, the commercial, it means the value. This is what I mean. Not only the transaction. It's commercial thing. Commercial means buy and sell. Buy and sell means money, the value, not
Yeah.
how many times I buy and sell. So this is one point we have to care about it also.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sorry for that, but
No,
because
no, no,
I'm
it's
commercial.
absolutely
Maybe I'm
fine.
commercial, so I know about it.
That's good. That's good.
I'll
Okay.
take the next one if no one wants it. Okay. I wanted to ask your thoughts on advertisements, specifically targeted advertisements on social media.
Yeah.
How effective do you think they are right now in an era where AdBlock is one of the most downloaded apps specifically to block such advertisements? Do you think they're really effective anymore?
So overall, again, I mean, it contains different topics again, right? So number one thing that we covered here as well, that, social media is, becoming an increasing importance also for commerce, because that's where the users are spending a lot of their time. Obviously, the question is the effectiveness of those ads, because you might say the users are consuming specific content there while they're doing that, not as interested in commerce. Overall, for us, it's one, we can see it very, very simply. It's one area to reach the consumer, which is very important. And when you want to deliver a marketing message, you ideally have as many touch points as possible, right? So for us, again, the good thing is that we can immediately measure the performance, if they click on the ad, if they convert or not. And based on that, we immediately react our system if we continue to show an ad to this user, also on those placements in social media, or if we stop. And this is a very dynamic process, right? Overall, again, it is, a very, very important ecosystem for, for marketing in general. But it bears, and this is also what was mentioned on one of the slides earlier, quite some big challenges for the marketers, brands, and commerce players anyways, because a lot of the social media platforms are walled gardens, right? So they're operating in their silos, and they're not necessarily sharing the data with the brands and with their clients, right? So it's not accessible. And that's even today already. So it has some limitations for brands in order to advertise in these social media environments overall. But for us, it's a very important and big platform to reach consumers and potential customers for our e-commerce players.
Are investments in this sphere growing by retailers?
So, I mean, I can't speak for social media players and their activities. I just can tell you that at least we started investing already years back, because advertising in social media environments has a lot of very specific restrictions as well. So we had to develop on our own technology that can adapt to this, right? Of course, I mean, brands started very early looking into social media, but mainly for bringing a certain message, and it wasn't conversion and immediately sales related, so that you can sell immediately there. So this is something that changed also with us stepping onto those platforms. In the end, the more time is spent in these environments, the more marketers and brands will also spend their marketing investments in those fields, for sure. Okay.
Any questions in Arabic, maybe? Anybody? I'm happy to answer any questions in Arabic if needed. Yeah?
Good.
Can I ask another one?
You can.
We don't charge you for them.
All right. Specifically, I want to focus on taking offline experiences online. For example, before 10 years ago, you didn't like a product, you called up the company and you said, okay, I don't like this. How can you help me exchange it, get a refund or stuff like that? Now, it's easier to just go to the company page. Hopefully, they'll have an online chat support 24/7, and you can just say, well, I got this product and I want to get it changed. So within a few minutes, you can solve that problem out online.
Yeah.
But the limitation is that some people are still not investing in such technologies. Do you think that this is something that they should be looking at increasingly in the coming years?
So mainly referring to the service?
Not specifically the
yeah.
service, but the whole idea about taking offline experiences, putting them online and making it easier for a consumer to go shopping, so to say.
Honestly, I think already today you see a lot more happening in the digital world, what has never been covered before in the offline. So I don't know. I'm not the one that would say that there is a big need for a lot of great offline things to be adapted online. It's a lot more what I meant earlier is seeing it as one ecosystem and serving your customer no matter where they are and what they want, what they need, right? And not to look at it, this is an offline customer, this is an online customer, because they are switching in between, and indeed they're expecting a seamless experience and service as well. Right now, the trend that you see, and that's why you see this web rooming as well, customers going online, doing research, going offline, because they still need that offline experience. You see a lot of trends around flagship stores, right? There was articles year and a half ago from one of the biggest players, for instance, in Europe, in Germany, Zalando, talking about opening flagship stores. Again, a pure online player. But that's all about offering the service that they feel that their customers are demanding. Here in the region, again, I think there's a lot of basics that need to be done, even comparing the services that they're offering versus services that are being offered in the e-commerce field already elsewhere, right? It's the speed of delivery, payment methods, and then, services. I had a service as well where I ordered something, it wasn't delivered, and I wanted to be able to contact, I'm not naming the player, but I was just directed to a mailbox to leave a message, which was like surprising to me. I don't know. But this is, again, I mean, it'll self-regulate itself, right? Because you have big players here now that are, fighting for the customers, and it's all about offering the service that the customers are demanding. And if you don't adapt to it, then you will struggle very quickly, right? Of course, the flip side is now the customers are truly in the driver's seat, right? And they're driving the demands, etc. It could be quite costly, and that's why you see sometimes a bit of delay in adapting it. Because if you try to adapt everything and everything that is coming up and that you hear from as feedback from the customers, because it's a lot easier, for the customers to complain now openly in social media to give feedback. Obviously, I mean, you need to set a priority, and this is what you can feel here now. Where do you want to focus on, right? There's, again, a few big areas. It was the selection of products that was a big problem here in the region that was still quite limited, and the whole topic around delivery. And the question is, how do you serve that need, right? And that's why you see today already, which is an interesting trend for years, depending on the countries, that some of the big e-commerce players are amongst the biggest logistic companies, because they saw that this was a very big challenge and issue. And it's not only here, I mean, you see the souk cars driving around, or now more or less Amazon, but even in a market like Russia, it's truly, like the Amazon of Russia, Ozone, is one of the biggest logistic players, because that's the core service need for their clients. And if you're not good there, you will lose them immediately, right? And if you're really good, you can stick out. So really good means you don't just come and drop the delivery, but maybe serving also a need that you mentioned earlier. Suddenly the customer says, no, actually I don't like it. Yeah, well, it's even better if that person immediately can deal with this feedback and say, okay, don't worry, I take it immediately. I will make sure here I change the delivery. You will get a different item or size or whatever. Then it's a really good customer experience. So you can lose big time, but you can, with being even better, you can win a lot as well.
Just one question.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about data sharing between big players.
Mm-hmm.
So data privacy also comes into that as well, right? In US, there are data privacy laws as
Mm-hmm.
well, where you cannot share data between two retailers cannot share data. So do you think that plays a role? I mean, over here we don't have that laws for now.
Yeah.
But
so I mean, so from us at Kriteo, we deal with this a lot, obviously, because we are an international player, and we need to apply to wherever the most strictest guidelines are, and those we apply globally, right? On how we manage data, process data, etc. It wouldn't be possible to do it in one country a bit more open, in another not. Being a European company, where in Europe you have some of the world's most strictest data protection laws, this is something that we have been looking at straight from the beginning. So it's a lot about the data that you're collecting is not real personal data, right? It's anonymized data, how you store it and how you share it, right? And to give you another example, from the time that we started, we were one of the first companies using, and that's minimum 8-9 years back, that we already had at that time in every single banner that we displayed a little icon that you could click on, and you get the information, why are you seeing the ad? And you could opt out, for instance, which is one of the big topics as well, right? The whole thing around opt out, opt in. So we started very, very early with this. So obviously, it's really important to take it seriously and to make sure that you are compliant and that you protect the customer data, because yes, indeed, you are dealing with a lot of data, while at the same time it's clear, right? I mean, the internet, and this is a big topic for you guys as well, the internet, well, it's not for free, right? So you have a lot of valuable content from news websites as well, right? So advertising is right now the most important source also of financing it, right? So that's why everything around, also what we heard earlier a bit about, ad blocking, etc., is a bit of a strange topic, because people need to understand, and customers, that good content you have to pay. If you buy a newspaper in earlier days or still now, or if you pay something for it online, right? And advertising is one of the most important funding channels for that, right? So that is clear to a lot, but then obviously it's important how you deal with it, right? Interestingly, for Kriteo, for a very, very long time, we didn't even care about a lot of different type of data, right? So we technically could run all of our campaigns without knowing, are you male, female, what's your age, or nothing. This is traditional way of target group marketing, right? When you try to anticipate what's your target group and where can you find it, right? And then you try to place an ad in an environment where you would anticipate and assume you'll find those people there, right? But we are looking at a lot less, but very, very precise type of data, right? I don't care if you're male or female, but you still want to buy female shoes, because you might be the one buying it as a present for your wife or whatever, right? So we only look at certain data points that are not even as personal as well, right?
They're pseudo-anonymous, so they don't identify any person.
Yeah.
We do not have any information on your identity, whether it's gender, age, income, none of that.
But as an industry, everyone needs to take it serious, and of course, make sure that it's followed. But in the long run, there's a lot of good initiatives, because it's a lot of technology coming up, so you need to adapt those laws. But again, I'm confident that by working together very closely and a lot of communication in between governments and the industries, you will be able to find solutions that will protect the data even in the changing world. Right?
Maybe you can give the example what kind of data sharing we're referring to, so that it's not competitive data sharing. So a player would not share his personal CRM data to a competitor of his. It's more about collaborations. And nowadays, if you look at the travel industry, for example, you see that an airline X is already data sharing with hotels or has plugins within their website that lead to an OTA or a hotel company, right? The same applies to car rentals. This is the sort of data sharing that we're referring to as well. It's a collaborative data sharing between clients that at the moment are guarding their data, thinking, oh, it's my precious, I don't want to share it and lose anything out of it, right? So we're facilitating the share between clients that will all benefit from sharing with each other.
So basically with data protection laws, we can still share data between...
Yeah, of course, as long as they're anonymized and not personal data, that is a key point, right? In particular when you look at EU legislation, etc., right? So you have the certain, hashing technologies, etc., that can ensure that it's not possible to track back down to a single person, right? This is clear, but it's more. A lot about is also intent data and about trying to understand what's the next interest of a shopper, for instance.
And one more thing, you talked about web rooming and showrooming.
Yeah.
And now there's a trend of social media influencers.
Mm-hmm.
So do you see social media influencers taking over showroom part of?
So I mean, honestly, it's a fairly broad question that is even for us. Like, I can only tell you what I observe and what I think in this field. The showrooming will remain very important because you still have a lot of customers that, number one, I mean, here in particular, it's part of your leisure activity, right? You go to the mall not, just because you really need to buy something. You go because it has the nice aquarium or it's very hot outside and you have nice restaurants, and while you are there, you go around. And that's why you see this big trend of the shops itself sometimes are getting smaller but a lot nicer. It's flagship stores. What you want to do is just present your new products, and you still have a lot of customers that they want to touch and feel, and then they want to buy, especially also the more expensive or more complex products. The social media influencers are, I would say, rather an addition to other referrals that you had, references, and it could be a lot around branding as well, right? That's why a lot of brands invest there, because it's more about increasing the awareness of certain products and building a brand, associating it with someone that the followers might, trust and appreciate. But then when it's about, okay, you like a product, you have a positive affection to like a certain brand, but then about where do you buy that? Again, it's about offering what we have discussed now, also certain services, offering a good price, a good return policy maybe, and then being able to offer it again offline and online depending on where your consumer is. So they might be influenced again in terms of which brand they want to buy, but then they would still go offline, and look at the different potential devices or whatever it is in the different stores, right?
I think if there are no more questions for the moment, because we are a bit over time, but now that the hour is full, so we can still take, if someone has an additional question, we can still take it. I would say we can stop the official part here.
And I think, again, it's really important because we shared quite some numbers. There is obviously a lot more data than what we just highlighted here, so that we can share afterwards with you. And if you then have any questions, feel free to reach out, of course. Thank you.